Hello, this is an introduction to Rstudio. I'm going to try to explain the windows that you're looking at here, how you can change the appearance of Rstudio, and then how we use R as a calculator and assigning variables. And I'll also give you a little bit of a rationale for why it is that we script rather than typing in at the console. So we're going to start with the appearance. As I'm looking at Rstudio here, it's all in black, which is my preferred theme. And when you've opened Rstudio, you should find that it opens automatically as a white background. So you've probably seen that all proper programmers seem to use dark backgrounds, and you can change the background here and make it any way that you like by using an option under the Tools menu. Now I'm afraid the menu options don't magnify too well, so you want to go to that toolbar along the top which starts with File, and towards the end there's one that says Tools. Click on that and then go to Global Options, and then you should have a window appear, and one of the options under there is Appearance. If you click on Appearance, then you have this Editor Theme, and this is where you can change the look of your editor. So there's a nice one there, Chaos, I quite like that one. You will start off with, there we go, TextMate, looking like that. So I like to use Solarized Dark. Oh, I can't get to the... There we go. So change that how you want it to be. So in Rstudio, let me just make my notes here. You'll start off probably with 3 windows. It's possible when you first started opening up, you got 4 windows, which look like this. So don't worry about that. I'll come to that in a moment. So I'm going to close that for a minute. So we have these 4 windows. This window on the left-hand side, this is where R commands get typed and where they actually get executed. So this is the R engine, if you like. And then over on the right-hand side, at the top we've got a few different tabs here. The one that you'll look at most often is the one called Environment. So this is where all the objects that you create in R, you can see them. So it allows you to see what you've done so far, what you've made so far. Now if you're using the virtual desktop, you may find that you've got a list of things in here already, and that's absolutely fine. Don't worry about that. You've also got here something called History, which you'll look at a bit later, which is history of all your commands. And then on the bottom right hand side, we've got a file explorer. So here we have a list of all the files that are on my desktop, as we can see there. And you also have a window which is where your plots will go. And you have a packages window, which will just take a moment to update here. And this is where you can see all the packages you already have installed, but it's also a method for installing packages using this install button. And the other window you have, which you'll use a lot, is the help window. So this is the help manual we've got here. Yours will open up with a window a bit like that, I think. Okay, so let's start with assigning variables, or using R as a calculator. We can use R as a calculator, so if I type 3 plus 4, and then press enter to send that command, I get the answer 7 out. So this little arrow, this is called the prompt, and this is not something you have to type. It's something that tells you that R is ready for input. So it's ready and waiting for you to type some commands in. Where I've written 3 plus 4 here, I've got no spaces, but you can have spaces And in fact, it's good practice to have spaces around your operators, like a plus or an equals or a minus or so on. So a better way of writing this would be 3 space plus space 4, enter. Because it's slightly clearer to read. That's considered good practice, is to always use spaces around different elements in R. And then looking at the output here, what we've got is the number 7, which is obviously the answer, and we have this 1 in brackets. So that 1 in brackets is an index. It's telling you that the 7 is the first element of the output. Now, if I was to do a bigger chain of numbers, so I'm going to use the numbers from 50 to 150. So nothing special about these numbers at all. 50 colon 150 just means print out the numbers from 50 to 150 in steps of 1. And if I press enter to send this, it's giving me all those numbers. So I use these numbers just because it meant that the actual output would have to wrap onto several lines. So what this is telling you, the number 13 here is telling you, is that 62 is the 13th element in the output. So these elements are just telling you where you are in the output. Okay, so that's the 97th number, the 98th, the 99th, the 100th and the 101st number. Okay, there. So ordinarily when we do calculations or we use numbers in R, we probably want them assigned to variables. And the way we do assignment in R is to use an arrow. It's an assignment operator, we call it. So I'm going to assign the value 3 to X. So if I type X, and then I'm going to type an arrow, and then I'm going to put 3. Let me just press enter. So there's a few things to pick up here. The first is, this is the assignment operator. It's made of 2 characters, the less than and the minus. And there's a shortcut for that in R, which is Alt minus. So that's Alt minus. And that will give you that assignment operator without you having to do too much keyboard kung fu. And you'll also automatically get spaces. So then you'll also notice that having run this command, what's happened up in the environment is I now have something called X, which has the value 3. I don't have any output because there is no output for this command. So that 3, instead of being just printed out to the screen, has been put inside X. And I'm going to do the same now for the value of 4 and Y. So 4 Y Alt minus 4, and then press enter. Now I have an object called Y, which has the value 4, and I've got the prompt back. And I can use these values in calculations just like I would in maths and algebra. So I'm going to do X plus Y. And that gives me the value 7, just as we do expect. So let's suppose I made a mistake, something like X, and then I typed plus, and then I accidentally missed the Y button, and I pressed U instead. So I should get an error when I do this, so I press enter. So the error I'm getting there is object U is not found. So when you get that error, have a quick look up at your environment and you can see, well, there is nothing called U, so that's what it's complaining about. It doesn't know what U is. So I've just made a typo and I want to correct that to send it again. And we have access to all the commands that we've previously written in using what's called command recall, and you can get that by using the up arrow. So if you press the up arrow, you will get your previous command. If you press it again, you'll get the command before that. If you press it again, the command before that, and so on. So I've got XU here, and then I can edit that. So I'm going to backspace to get rid of the U and press Y to correct it, and then press enter. Hurrah, and now I've got it right. So most of what we type in R is going to be wrong. And that's not just because you're a beginner, that's the same for everybody. On the whole, you type it wrong as n-1 times. It's basically wrong, 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 right, and then you can stop and move on to the next thing. Wrong, 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 wrong. Oh, now I've got it right, and now I can move on to the next thing. So you get it wrong all the time. And you might want to access your previous commands, apart from through the up arrow. And that's what the history does. So the history has a record of everything you've typed in. So you can see all your commands here. The thing about the history is it has all your commands, including the ones that were wrong. So although you can save this history file if you want to save all of your commands, ordinarily we don't want to save all of our commands because so much of what we do is actually wrong and we want to correct it. So because of that, instead of typing into the console, what we normally do is type into a script. And we type into the script and then send the commands to the console. And then if we've made any mistakes, we just correct our script. And then at the end of the game, we've got just a record of everything that worked. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to open a new script. So you've got a button on the top left-hand side. If you click on that, you'll get one of the options, or it's the top option, a new R script. So that's the window that may have opened for you initially. So now let's pretend that I put in Y plus U into my script. In order to send that to the console, so just typing it and even pressing enter doesn't send that command. Okay? So it's not run at all. You can see nothing's happened down here in the console. But to make it go there, you have to put your cursor on the line and then do Control and Enter. So I'm getting that error there, object U not found. And then I wouldn't type the correct command in on line 2, I would just correct the one that I've got in there. So I'll now make that X, and I'll press enter. I'll press Control Enter and send that, and now it's correct. Okay. So one of the advantages of using the script, apart from the fact that at the end of the session you've got a list of all the commands that actually worked, another advantage is that you can comment. So I can write comments in here with a hash. If I put a hash, then anything I write after that hash is treated as information and not as a command. So R knows it's just a comment. So I am going to write here adding X and Y. There we go. And you can see with the editor, it's actually made that italic. Depending on which theme you've chosen, it may be different, to try and make it more obvious that is a comment rather than actual code. So as I've mentioned a number of shortcuts here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write these down in this script. So the shortcut for the assignment is Alt and then the minus key. Comment is a hash, or hashtag as you like to call it. What were the other things I wanted to write down? There was definitely something else, I just can't remember what it was now off the top of my head. Perhaps use spaces. There we go, that will be one that I can use. I might write some more things in a moment. So, having created a script, I would want to save it, and you can do that by clicking on the disk icon or by using the file menu. So if I click on that now, I'm going to save mine as, I'm saving mine as test, test 1, and it'll automatically end with, save with a .r extension. You can call yours anything you like, it doesn't matter. So you can see it's automatically ended there with a .r extension. So these R scripts will contain all the commands that were correct and all the commentary that you've written in to write them. And you should use as many comments as you want. You have other types of file in Rstudio as well. And one of those types is what we call the workspace. So we can save this, these objects. So it saves the objects but not the code. So on the right we've got on the left we've got the code but not the objects, and on the right we've got the objects but not the code. And you sometimes want to do this if you want somebody else to know exactly what your environment was like at the time you were trying to write some commands, like when you were trying to get help. You also might do that if it takes quite a long time to run the script. Okay. So with this in mind, normally I would recommend changing some of the settings on Rstudio so that you don't automatically save that environment. And you do that through the Tools menu again. So if you go to Tools, Global Options, and let's have a look. So if we look down these R sessions, you can see that one of the options here is restore R data into workspace at the startup. I think the default might be to have that on. I suggest clicking that off. And I would also have save workspace to R data on exit as never. So that means you don't save the workspace unless you want to save it explicitly. Okay, and that's the end of this video.